between now and the men arriving home, Melanie had also volunteered to produce 300 cupcakes. Melanie was no stranger to homecomings. She had never known a life away from the army. Her father had been an officer in the paratroop regiment, who through a combination of single-mindedness and exceptional bravery had risen to the rank of brigadier. His advancement had come at the cost of frequent moves, and the family never being able to put down permanent roots. Melanie had hoped that her adult life would be more settled, and that she wouldn't have to live with the constant fear that her husband might not come home. The opposite had happened. During the 10 years of their marriage, Christopher had completed 9 6-month tours of duty, 5 to Afghanistan and 4 to Iraq. 3.5 years in combat. Although she tried hard to convince herself otherwise, their 2 daughters, Emily and Hannah, aged 9 and 7, hardly knew him. This time, Melanie thought to herself as she painted the last E on the Welcome Home banner, she would find the courage to tell Chris that she wanted things to change. Her brother-in-law had an opening at his insurance brokerage in Bristol and was prepared to offer a salary that would almost match what the army was paying. Plus, there was the opportunity for regular bonuses. If Christopher could go toe-to-toe with Al-Qaeda in Iraq and the Taliban in Helmand, Melanie reasoned, selling a few insurance policies surely wouldn't pose him many problems. Give him a day or 2 to adjust to home, then plant the seed. That was her plan, and this time she was determined to stick to it. "Would you mind giving me a hand hanging this up to dry?" Melanie addressed her question to Sarah Tanner, a pretty 19-year-old, nearly 8 months pregnant, who had spent the morning making elaborate table decorations out of coloured tissue paper. She was quite an artist. "Sure," Sarah said distractedly. Like most of the women working around the long row of trestle tables, she had been lost in thought. "Are you all right?" Melanie asked as they each took hold of one end of the banner. Sarah attempted a nod and a smile, but tears welled in her eyes. Melanie knew exactly how she felt. The last few days of tour were almost the most painful. "Why don't you come outside with me for a moment?" They left the banner on the table and headed towards the door, Melanie looping her arm inside Sarah's as they stepped around 2 boisterous 3-year-olds who had escaped from the roped-off nursery area in pursuit of a ball. An older woman, Kathleen Lyons, whose grandson was one of the youngest members of C Company, jumped up from her chair and came after them. "Love," Kathleen called out to Sarah. She dipped a hand into her cardigan pocket and brought out a small bundle of coupons. "I was going to share these out later. Have some." Sarah sniffed a thank you and gratefully took a few. Kathleen worked at a local supermarket and eagerly hoovered up the money-off vouchers that careless customers left at her till. She couldn't let them go to waste, so made a point of sharing them amongst the wags. "Wedding plans going okay?" Kathleen inquired kindly. "Great, thanks," Sarah said, wiping away more tears. "I just hope I'll fit into my dress. I won't at this rate." "You look beautiful," Kathleen said. Melanie agreed. Sarah turned heads everywhere she went, and her fiancé, Kenny Green, was the envy of his comrades. Melanie and Kathleen exchanged a look as Sarah dried her eyes. Both knew how difficult things were at home for the young woman who was currently living with her future in-laws in their small house just outside the camp. Paul Green, her fiancé's father, had struggled with depression since being invalided out of the regiment a few years before, and Rachel, his mother, was a drama queen who broke all the unspoken rules by voicing her morbid fears over her son's safety at every opportunity. Neither Melanie nor Kathleen could tolerate Rachel's company for more than a few minutes at a time. They didn't like to think what a strain it must be for Sarah. It was also no secret that Rachel Green wasn't looking forward to seeing her only son get married in a fortnight's time. There wasn't a young woman alive who would have been good enough for her precious Kenny. "Problems at home?" Melanie asked, as they continued towards the exit. Sarah nodded. "I know it's tough, but I really think you ought to have it all out with Rachel before Kenny gets back. The last thing you want is him coming home to an atmosphere that'll spoil the wedding."